For 5 days, Southern Albertans have gone through the ringer, every emotion from fear to sorrow to relief, as communities, small and large, now confront an enormous recovery. Today, their premier pledged to be right with them, announcing a $1 billion kickstart. Calgarians themselves made two powerful statements of resilience. Thousands showed up to volunteer, and organizers of the city's calendar event of the year said next week's Calgary Stampede is a go. It's a huge venture to get off the ground at the best of times, prepping Stampede Park for hundreds of thousands of visitors. But with the event set to begin 11 days from now, just look at how much tougher the task is this year. The CBC's Carolyn Dunn starts our coverage again tonight. Carolyn?
Well, Amanda, we've been out on the streets since these floods happened, and there's little doubt, you can just see behind me, that this city is battered. But people here are absolutely determined to fight back, and that begins with an event they cherish.
Let's get right now.
It's been held every year for the past 100 years. Not even the city's worst flooding is going to mess with tradition.
And we will be hosting the greatest outdoor show on earth, come hell or high water.
It's going to take a lot to make that happen. The first call for Calgarians to pitch in was expected to draw hundreds. Well over 2,000 showed up.
It's our city and people are suffering. I mean, you just want to help. You feel so almost guilty that it didn't happen to you, right?
I've only been here 7 years, but I feel truly Calgarian, and to see all these people reaching out and helping, and I just want to be part of the action.
The devastation has even captured the attention of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, who visited Alberta in 2011 and wrote today, "Catherine and I have been saddened to learn of the death and destruction. Our continued thoughts and prayers for all those caught up in the flooding. William." Premier Alison Redford announced the start of financial relief. Preloaded debit cards for those still displaced. $1,250 for adults, $500 per child. Oh, and $1 billion to jumpstart recovery efforts.
You know, I don't want to scare people, but I want you to know that when we talk about what's going to happen, we're talking about a 10-year plan.
Obviously, no one knows the final cost of damages, but BMO's early estimates are up to $5 billion. Such a big disaster. But Calgary's mayor is encouraging city residents to start small.
Just go help your neighbor. If they're cleaning out their basements, if you know people who could use some assistance in cleaning up their yard, just go over and help. It's a great way to start.
James Maxim knows that only too well. Yesterday, two strangers showed up and worked at his home for 2 hours. Today, the 7 feet of water that filled his home is down 2 inches.
Really a godsend situation where people have come together, acted as a team, and got the work done.
And it's that spirit that Stampede organizers are counting on to get it open on time. And I can tell you, Amanda, that people here take real pride in the Stampede in the city. So you can bet that it's going to be all hands on deck to make sure that the show does go on.
Of course, Carolyn, even when the water does recede, we know that electricity can be affected. What's the situation with power in the region?
Well, it's certainly spotty throughout the city. Here where we are right now, there is no power, but we are just getting word that the power has been restored to the downtown section, and we are told that some workers are being told that they can go back to work. Also, some C-Train officials are saying that the power could be expanded and turned on to that line to get the public transit system moving properly again by Wednesday. A very important sort of milestone in this recovery effort.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks so much, Carolyn. Carolyn Dunn. Well, apart from all the important cultural value that it brings to Calgary, the Stampede also has a huge economic impact. Last year, it provided seasonal jobs for 3,000 people, and a record-setting 1.4 million people attended. That all translated into nearly $190 million to Calgary's economy and more than $250 million for the province as a whole. After seeing just how devastating the floods in Calgary were, it's easy to understand why people in Medicine Hat have been so anxious. Their river's been rising for days. They've been preparing for the worst. The CBC's Briar Stewart has the details tonight from that flooded community. Briar?
Amanda, throughout the weekend, this community has been waiting and watching the river, and now that it's crested, there's been extensive damage. The South Saskatchewan River was at its highest level ever, and the damage might be the worst this city has ever seen. So why is it that some people here can't help but smile, even as they're left pumping sewage out of their basement?
It's a hell of a lot better than we thought. We figured it would at least be 5 feet on foundations.
A dirty mix of water and debris laps up against his street, but it didn't reach the houses here. But many others weren't so lucky.
At this point in time, arguably it's 1,000 homes that have been impacted.
An aerial view shows just how much of this city of 60,000 is underwater. A massive moat surrounds the baseball stadium. Crews have been pumping water out of the arena for hours. This is one of the flattest parts of the city, and it was here where members of the military worked around the clock.
Through the night last night, we made sure that we had a secondary containment barrier put up, just in case this first barrier became breached.
In the end, the barrier protected much of the street. As crews try to assess the damage in Medicine Hat, others work to reopen the city, including 2 bridges that were closed yesterday because of the rising water level. During the last major flood, the water nearly reached Lisa Grube's business. So this time she put up sandbags, but she didn't need them.
But we got lucky. Makes me choke up. Well, we had minor inconvenience compared to a lot of people here in Medicine Hat and Calgary.
And Amanda, a big difference between Calgary and Medicine Hat is timing. This community had advanced warning and more time to better prepare. Amanda?
All right, thanks, Briar. Some First Nations communities in southern Alberta were also hit hard by the flooding, and they're frustrated by the lack of public awareness.
I know your questions are important and you're here, but let me just say this, that where were you guys, where was the media here 2-3 days ago, where we needed help from the public?
The water reached as high as a meter in some areas of the Siksika First Nation. 1,000 people are still out of their homes, even as the waters recede. They are getting help, though. The province, industry, and relief organizations are working with First Nations leaders.
This is crazy. We just need to get in for certain stuff.
We need a little bit more information than, hunker down for the time being. It's hard when you don't have the resources to hunker down.
There's a lot of frustration tonight in the town of High River, south of Calgary. More than 10,000 residents still can't go home. The community remains under a state of emergency. Officials don't know when it will be lifted. And we'll be taking a deeper look at the situation in High River a little later in the program. This now, Claire Martin, obviously been tracking this all week. One thing we don't want to hear is that there is more rain coming.
Every evening I think we're going to say we've had enough of the weather, that we're moving on, and it feels like every day, as days go by, we're talking about the weather again. And again tonight, yet another little line of storms making its way up towards Medicine Hat. Now, on the radar, they're just south of Medicine Hat. Huge amounts of rain, but normally we wouldn't worry about this. We'd say, well, it's another thunderstorm. Hey, it's the prairies. But when you're falling water into saturated ground, the trickle-down effect into that river basin is huge. The crest has been lowering as it made its way through Medicine Hat. Once we add on those thunderstorms, the crest will rise again. And the issue just isn't for southern Alberta now. It's for other parts of the prairie provinces, Saskatchewan and Manitoba. So much as I would like to say we're winding this story down from a weather angle, I don't think we are.
And Saskatchewan and Manitoba have also seen some minor flooding already so far this spring. Is there a flood season that comes to an end at some point, Claire?
You know what? I would hope there is. It feels like this is the year that we're just going to get water loaded. We've got water falling not only in Alberta, it's in through central Saskatchewan, in through parts of southern and central Manitoba, and all of those rivers are interconnected. So it's not just a province story of Alberta. This is a story that goes right across the prairies. And until we get done with summer, I think we're going to be seeing an awful lot of this. The flooding season is going to be right through to September.
Thanks, Claire.
You're welcome.
Claire Martin.